Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or in trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, November 21st. We're going to take a look at Nvidia today. So with earnings coming up and the whole market kind of bracing for how it's going to react based on what Nvidia reports, I thought we'd come in, take a look at the levels, trend lines, ThinkerSwim study, and call it a video. So whether Nvidia decides to boom, bust, or move relatively sideways, there are some really important levels in all directions. So if it does either boom or move relatively sideways, this pretty long-term uptrend support could come into play. So we had this big gap up here this day when it jumped up like 24%, which is wild for a stock of this price. But it's reclaimed this uptrend support. You see it had that big boom, and then it moved up, even higher, was continuously making higher lows, and then it dipped a bit, made a lower low, and that lost the uptrend support. But with the recent push, it has come and taken that level again. So again, if it continues to climb, or even if it moves sideways, I will look for that level to see what that trend line does, because if it moves sideways, it's going to run into it really quickly. And if it moves up, we're going to kind of be in no man's land, because we're at highs up here, right? This is the monthly chart. You see way back here, we're nowhere near where we are now. So yeah, so we're kind of, off on our own with EMAs and channels and trend lines. So this is the trend line portion of that. Now, if it does also move relatively sideways, this 502.62 is the level that I have on the chart. So, if it just sort of magnetizes itself to that, so that'll be pretty much, in line with the swing high over here. So I know it overcame that yesterday, but I'm interested to see if it can hold it, right? It's a lot to swing high and continue to hold. We'll see how much this earnings reaction feels as though good news is priced in, is another thing I would watch for. With all of the crazy jumps in the Nvidia stock price recently, I would start to wonder, do folks feel like it's priced in even if it's pretty good? Or do they take that as sort of just really strong, solidified bullish sentiment, and on neutral to decent earnings, they continue to, put in the buying pressure and help it fly? So it's an interesting sort of situation that it's in. Now, if it does come down, there's a few levels. So obviously we have this support level, but below that, basically 475, I would say, is probably what that acts like. 439. This is like the sort of mental or psychological level that folks would be feeling as it approached the 400 level. Obviously, that would be a huge downturn if it got down here. But I'm not just saying that it's all going to happen in one day, obviously. But the approach to 400, I have it in here as 403.08. If it dips below that, it's 385.64, and then it really gets into a precarious situation whereby there is this gap. We talked about that big jump, 24% up in a day. So it did leave a gap that's not yet filled, that it would enter at 366.28 and it would fill it at 318.22. So again, huge shift downward if it were to come down to fill that, even if it's, far into the future. It would still be a really big shift from where it is now. So again, not saying that's where it's going to go, over the course of a day or a week, but just to point out, there are those levels to the downside if it does dip. But the key levels to me at the moment are that uptrend support and that level it's wrestling with right now, just over the $500 level. Like, what does it want to do with that $500 level? Continue to try to build support over it, sort of secure that as new home base, or is it going to kind of uniformly reject it, which is, it's peeling back a little bit today, as you see, and say, okay, that's a bit too much for where we are and what we heard on the earnings report. that is to be determined by the market. Now, on the ThinkerSwim side of things, if we zoom in here a bit, we are stretched to the upper bound of the channel. Now, this can spend quite some time outside the upper bound of the channel. You see here, it's been several days outside the upper bound of the channel. And then when it came down, it didn't even need to press and test the mid-range of the channel, that bright blue line. That's how strong the momentum was. So that was an indication that it, was going to be able to push out again. And once again came down, and here it had a much less bullish push, right? So couldn't get out of the channel, came down, tested it, came down and tested the lower bound of the channel, and then kind of got back into that swing of upper bound to lower bound, upper bound to lower bound. And now we are on that push out through the upper bound of the channel. So we see pretty consistently the ability to stretch to the upper bound of the channel on these pushes, whereby stretching below the lower bound of the channel is like lackluster at best, right? The bears don't really have the strength at the moment to really pull it out of the channel for anything more than a little peak, but it's not doing anything like we see here, or certainly like we saw back on the big gap up. Now, given this is a situation, I would look at some point for it to come, once again, test the mid-range of the channel. Will that be in conjunction with the reaction to earnings, or will earnings set this off on a course to further push the price up and out of the upper bound of the channel and spend some time out there? That could certainly happen. But again, even if that does happen, at some point, I look for it to come test the mid-range of the channel. Now, because this channel moves every time a candle is put in, we don't know where that mid-range of the channel would be by the time it starts to maneuver itself back into the channel, but that's something to look at that point if folks are interested. All right, folks, I hope that you have had a good trading week, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.